3.5 hours. Ben and I did a watch party one time. We had a good time watching it, but the film is just, it's, oh boy, oh Julie. In her biography, she talks to. She's like, "Yeah, that was disappointing."
Well, the most disappointing thing is the musical numbers are amazing, and her wardrobe is amazing, but the entire film, like, it's like Cleopatra. It's not structured well at all. It's all over the place. She's, and audiences weren't willing to accept Julie Andrews besides anything else besides this kind of virginal, sweet goddess. That's one reason Doris Day might have been able to do it. I would not have, honestly, I would not. I love Doris Day, but I would not have liked to see her in this movie.
No, I read somewhere that she said she actually was like, she took herself out of the running because she said she was too American. And she was like, I'm going to be too American for The Sound of Music.
Well, that's another thing that we need to talk about. Actually, the next thing that we need to talk about is Christopher Plummer. Originally, the studio, which I think the studio means probably Dick Zanuck, wanted Yul Brynner or Bing Crosby to play Captain Von Trapp.
Also, two other names they were considering to add on were Richard Burton and Sean Connery. Were the other two they wanted.
Yes, David Niven and Peter Finch.
Not David Niven. What?
Yes, David Niven. Can you imagine?
Wow. None of those people.
I know. Well, David Niven, he'd be too loosey-goosey. I'd be like, this guy doesn't intimidate me at all. He charms the pants off of me, but he does not intimidate me whatsoever. And originally, also, when William Wyler was directing, he was rooting for the role of the captain to go to Rex Harrison, which...
Oh, no.
No. But Yul Brynner, well, Doris Day did pull herself out of the running, but originally her husband, Martin Melcher, he was rooting for her to be Maria. Can you imagine what would have happened? Yul Brynner and Doris Day as Maria and Captain Von Trapp. Do you have any comments on that, Rachel?
That would have been such a different movie. Wow. And I mean, like, listen, they're both incredible in their own right, but there is magic that happens between Julie Andrews and Christopher Plummer. And like, even Julie says it in her book, and I know you'll talk about it too, but like Christopher Plummer brought that seriousness and that gravitas to it because he was like a Shakespearean trained actor. And like, he brought authenticity to like she said, it's the scene when it's there in the gazebo before something good. And he's confessing that like the first time, like, this is the first time I like fell in love with you. And she says that he brought this like boyish giddiness that like actually made her fall in love with him. And it's like just the way that he like actually like the way that he like, even though he quoted that he hated the movie, like, but the fact that the way he like dissected the role, like it just and the fact that she was like her third film ever, so it's like you have the naivety with like the seriousness of it. Like, I honestly can't imagine anyone else. I can't imagine anyone else having that type of chemistry. Like, Godspeed to anyone and everyone who thought they were right for it. Sorry, it's Julie and Christopher. Like, that's my team. That's my people right there.
I know. Yeah, and it would have been a little bit too much like King and I in some ways. I mean, younger Deborah Carr could have been Maria as well.
Oh, totally.
I know, but that would have been another King and I. What happened with Yul Brynner, though? Robert Wise felt... Robert Wise's reason, which, I mean, Yul Brynner is not right for that role, in my opinion. We both can say that. But Robert Wise, one of his main reasons was the fact that Yul Brynner had this very thick accent. And he was like, we can't have this thick accent. Robert Wise said that he wanted to keep the movie completely pure. So he, I know, it kind of makes me grit my teeth, but he wanted to, especially concerning Yul Brynner. It's like he wanted to keep this movie pure to maintain consistencies between the characters. So he had a dialect coach come in and train all of the children, Julie and Eleanor Parker, and Richard Hayden had them all coach them in the transatlantic dialect. to give it a bit of an older feel and also to remain like constant through dialect, so they all felt like they were part of the same place.
I was again was watching it recently. You can tell those kids are doing a hard transatlantic accent. Like it
Yeah,
comes through. It is so clear. Like you can tell that they are trying, so, like really hitting in that transatlantic accent. It's because Julie's doing Julie, Christopher Plummer's
yeah,
doing Christopher Plummer, and like you can hear it. Max and Elsa, you
Elsa,
can hear the transatlantic, but it's in that like Katharine Hepburn way. Like it's a very like
right?
it flows, or like the Cary Grant Katharine Hepburn with those kids. Whoo!
It's
Boy,
choppy.
howdy, you can tell.
Well, and they go out of it, and then they come back in, and they do like a long A, like after the ball, and then they say after I fall in love, and you're like, no. But like, I mean, Julie's doing Julie, like you said. Christopher Plummer, he was trained as a Shakespeare actor, and Eleanor Parker had worked at Warner Brothers since 1942 when Betty Davis was the Queen of the Lot, so she had been trained in that. Richard Hayden had also, I believe, he had been in vaudeville, or he had been in
He was
some.
vaudeville, yeah.
Yeah, he had also been trained with that, so it flowed with them, which is perfect for them because they're, the fabulous Baroness and her gay sassy best friend is basically what that is. They work well together, and then
Absolutely.
Julie and Christopher work well together. Robert Wise did not want Captain Von Trapp to have an accent, but I also feel, well, he said he wanted Christopher Plummer. He had seen him on Broadway, and he said he was ridiculously handsome. He had like this hard dark edge, and he
Ooh,
knew
yeah.
that he would be able to bring dimension to any character. And the Captain Von Trapp in the Broadway show was just basically a piece of wood. He
He
came
was
on and
he was a prop, yeah.
yeah, he was a prop. And Robert Wise wanted to add dimension to that character, and that's why he chose Christopher Plummer. Christopher Plummer, at first, he vacillated a lot back and forth whether he wanted to do this or not. I mean, at first he thought it was a good idea because he was going to do a musical version of Cyrano de Bergerac, so he thought, oh, that might be good.
Oh, that's
And then
right.
I think he read it and he was like, yeah, and so he said no. But then his agent thought it was a good idea for him to do it as an actor because it could propel his career forward. And plus the agent wanted that cold hard cash. So Robert Wise went to London and talked Christopher Plummer into playing the captain on the condition that Christopher Plummer could come in with Ernest Lehman and work on developing that character even more, which he did. And funny story, Julie Andrews had history with Maria in her Carol Burnett, their special at Carnegie Hall, where she spoofed the whole thing because Christopher Plummer was kind of hot on Broadway when Sound of Music was first coming out. And Mary Martin and her husband Richard Halliday were trying to find the perfect Captain Von Trapp. At the time that they called Christopher Plummer in, he was 26 years old to audition for Captain Von Trapp. Mary Martin was in her 40s or 50s. So they had him come in, and Rogers and Hammerstein were there. The producer was there, the director, everybody was there. And before he even started reading, Christopher Plummer said, "Not to offend you, but don't you think our age difference would shock the audience?" And that definitely shocked Mary Martin and everybody involved. And he didn't even get to read; they told him to leave.
Oh
So,
boy. Oh, Chris.
so he had some history with Sound of Music too. And then there's this whole chapter in the book that I listened to on the casting of the children, which is like a whole podcast within itself. I know Robert Weiss spent a long time hearing all sorts of different people read for the children. Somebody finally put a sign up on his door at Fox that said "Caution Children at Play" because he had so many children coming in and out. Mia Farrow at one time was
Hmm.
supposed to play Liesel. Did you know?
Yeah, it's like
Can you
she
imagine?
auditioned, Leslie Ann Warren auditioned, Geraldine Chaplin
Yes.
auditioned. It's like a slew
Mhm.
of like famous people's children auditioned for Liesel.
But then Kim Karath won the role just because she walked into their office and would not stop talking and like pulled out this giant portfolio and was showing them all of these pictures and be like, "This is I'm the best for this musical because of this and this and this and this
Oh,
and this."
I read she sang 16 going on 17 because she was already like a like performer. Like she was already like a like right like the girl like
Right.
Gretel. Yeah. Like she came and sang 16 going on 17. Again, this is according to the Broadway.com fact sheet. So again, correct me if I'm wrong, internet. But according to the article, she sang 16 going on 17 because she was like, yeah, no, I understand this. I'm an adult. I've got this figured out.
Yes. And she did. I feel like she had, at 5 years old, she had a whole lot more figured out than I will ever have figured out. So, but she did. She came in and she won that part. There's a lot of production history behind those children and what happened to their hair after they had to bleach all of their hair.
Oh my gosh, poor Friedrich's hair. I read about
Mhm.
that. That poor kid. And he grew 6 inches on set too. Like they had to like put boxes on everybody.
I know. And yeah, yeah. And his hair eventually started falling out. And then Julie Andrews said that they had to bleach. Well, they put blonde highlights in it originally to make it look a little bit lighter, but they ran out of the stuff that they were using for blonde highlights, so they just started bleaching it, which caused her hair to fall out.
Oh
You
yeah.
know,
Cause and like she had to, like she in her book she talks about how her because Julie Andrews is a natural brunette, if
mm,
y'all don't know. And then she had had a few highlights and then she'd cut it short because of the wigs for Mary Poppins, or like she'd cut it shorter. And then when they bleached her hair for, or they didn't bleach it, they did highlights. It turned orange, and so they're like, "We're just
mm,
gonna bleach it," and uh, it fell out, so they had to cut it even shorter. So that's why it's the length it is in Sound of Music, is because of the bleach. And she was like, "Well, it would be like that under the wimple anyway, so I kind of like it." And she said they had to constantly touch it up, like all because it took 5 months to film, so they had to like have someone there to like touch it up because she was bleached.
right.
It was bleached blonde.
Principal photography on Sound of Music began on March 26, 1964, at 20th Century Fox Studios until April. In April, they flew to Salzburg and began shooting on April 23rd at Mondsee Abbey for the wedding scenes. Now, most Austrian churches would, because they were holy places, they would not allow anybody to film inside. But this Mondsee Abbey had been used by so many different movies and studios that they allowed them to go in and film the wedding scene. And Julie Andrews said that the most beautiful she ever felt was in that wedding dress that Dorothy Jenkins designed for
Mm-hmm.
her. And I think the Austrians had a problem with the costumes when the film first premiered because they were like, that's not how we ever dressed. But she did a fantastic job in keeping with the concept of Robert Wise and the fact that everything was kept very clean, very neutral. The only person that wore a loud costume was the Baroness, but she's not a part of that world. And I think that's the statement he was trying to make with her. They originally, when they were scouting for different locations, Robert Wise wanted to use the original Von Trapp villa. They went to it. It had been taken over. Is it Himmler? One of
Yeah.
yeah, one of Hitler's henchmen had taken over their villa and pretty much run it into the ground. It was very run down by the time they got to it in when they were scouting for locations in 1964, so or 63.
And it's
60,
super like we went past it on the Sound of Music tour when I went,
mm,
but even in Julie's book she talks about the history of it after the Von Trapps left, that it be like the Hitler and his henchmen like killed any like Jewish person who worked there, killed a lot of people there. So even when you she said that she visited the her and Diane Sawyer visited the grounds for like an anniversary for Sound of Music, and she
mm,
said that like you could feel the evil there, like it was so like because of what had been done. And like now it's a museum, it's a Von Trapp family museum now, but it's
right.
just it's so like the house itself is like very dark. So even though the film didn't want to be saccharine, it's just not a pleasant looking home. It's because they and again I'm basing this because in Julie's book Homework she talks about a little bit of the history of the house, and she said
Mm,
it is basically like they basically they built like a stone wall around it to block out anybody, and they shot like as soon as the wall was finished they shot all the workers. Like if any, and again this is sorry, trigger warning for any of this content, everybody, trigger warning, this is this, you know, but it's history, it's this is something that very is was a very evil thing that
right.
happened, it was very real and a very unfortunate event. It became a part of the history of the Holocaust, which was very unfortunate.
Because when the Von Trapps left there in 37, 38, the Nazis just overtook their house. And that's fair. I mean, we can't overlook that history. I feel like that kind
Mm-mm,
of goes in line with the very dark history of the Von Trapps, which so many
mm-hmm.
people don't exactly realize how dark that movie. I mean, nobody lives a life as happy as Sound of Music. I wish I did. But lo and behold, that's not going to happen to me anytime soon. So anyway, they did not use Von Trapp Villa. They used for exteriors, I think it's Frauenburg Palace, and I can't remember if it's in Salzburg or if it's in Vienna.
I
I
think
think it's in
we went
Salzburg.
there, it's in Salzburg, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Great. So what they used that for was exterior shots of the house. So the front of the house, the back of the house, if they're standing on the porch at the back of the house, you see the back of the house. That's what that is. So for the lakefront terrace, like the steps leading down to the terrace, the gardens out on the terrace, and then the lake, they used, I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, Schloss Leopoldskron, which, if you think about, because I didn't even think about it until this book I was listening started talking about it, they had to so many scenes within the same scene, well, so many different scenes